We at Resilience Unscripted would like to thank Breaking Barriers Recovery Home for sponsoring this week's episode.
This week's episode of Resilience Unscripted is sponsored by PK Law Group.
Hi everyone, we're back with another episode of Resilience Unscripted. Here we are with Chris Gaeta.
How you guys doing today?
Thank you for coming on.
Of course, anytime. You know, this is all about recovery, so that's where we got to be.
So, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, a little bit about you.
Where do I begin? My name's Christopher Gaeta. I grew up in East Boston majority of my life. I'd probably say all of it for 38 years. Eastie kid, you know how it goes. Up from the Heights, born and raised. Where to start? You know, let's start with the whole story, right? My first drink when I was 9 years old. Actually, it was in East Boston. I'll never forget the story. I always tell this when I do a commitment. My buddy, Ray Zagarella, we can say he's fine with all this. I talked to him already. I asked. His dad worked at a liquor store over there, Woody's in East Boston,
yep.
And they used to stock shelves. So he used to pay him to go there on Sundays and stock the shelves. So I'll never forget, it was my 9th birthday. He's like, I got a present for you. And I was like, what do you mean you got a present for me? You know, we're 9-year-old kids, so I'm thinking, like, what do you got, a pack of Gushers? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we get to his house. He pulls out a little half pint of Jack Daniels, and he's like, this puts hair in your chest. Now, mind you, we're 9-year-old kids. And I'm like, all right, you know what? My brother drinks. He's 15. Why don't I go drink? Why don't I try this? And I'll never forget the night I was sitting there just eating red Doritos, puking my brains out because I drank a half a pint of Jack Daniels. And obviously then there were signs. I didn't realize because I was 9, but that was the real start of, like, you know, my first drink. Not a lot of people can say, you know, 9 years old, but 9 years old was my first time I was drunk. And, you know, after that, I didn't really get into drinking and drugging like that right away. I played sports. I liked, you know, I was very involved in, like, city stuff and the schools and all that kind of stuff. My father, my mother, you know, I grew up in Brandywine in East Boston, if you're familiar with that, until I was about 10 years old. My mother went to college, and she worked her way out of poverty. She got us a house on the hill up on Orient Heights over there. And, you know, we were that typical East Boston household. We had the Mary statue and the little half bathtub, that kind of thing. You know, everything you wanted in life to everybody else. But in my house, it wasn't really like that. My father was extremely abusive. He was a drug addict. You know, he had his own demons in his life. And growing up, it was rough for us. Because everybody always says, I'm sure you've heard the term, keeping up with the Joneses. Everyone thought we were the Joneses. You know, we had the 2-car garage, we had 2 cars, we had a pool, everything looked good, but nobody knew what was going on behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Closed doors, yeah.
My father suffered active addiction for many years, and he was always in between jobs, and he landed a job at the city because my grandmother got it for him for the city of Boston. And through that, you know, he found sobriety and recovery for about 10 years. And things were good. Like I said, you know, we got a house, everything looked fine, everything was good. But then, you know, people slip because they stop doing the work. And that's the biggest thing, is not doing the work. So with my father doing that, basically, you know, he started getting abusive to my brother, to me, to my mother. He started taking loans against the house, mortgages against the house, things you would never expect, you know, a normal human being to do. Again, I was a kid while this is all happening, so I don't understand what's going on, but I see what's going on. So like exactly, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is life. There's ups and there's downs, because I started with nothing, then we had everything, and now we're going back to, like, almost living bare bones again, but we're still in this house. And things got really abusive for my brother. You know, we always say, like, he got it worse than me kind of thing, but we both took it, the grunt of it, you know what I mean? I just stood up for myself. I'm one of those people, like, I've always been, you know, resilient, funny way to put it. When I was 16 years old, I came home, and my father screamed at my mother, and I grabbed my father's firearm, and I put it in his face, and he called the cops on me. And again, at this time in my life, I wasn't drinking, I wasn't drugging, I was just being a high school kid, and I was going to Eastie High.
You're trying to stand up for your family.
You know what I mean? It's my mother. That's the matriarch. Yeah. She's a saint, my mother. You know what I mean? She's the one that creates everything. We're an Italian family, Italian Sicilians, and, like, so, you know, my mother's everything.
Same.
You know, I put her on a pedestal. You know what I mean? That woman moves the earth, and she tells me to jump. How high? What do you need? You don't even think twice about it.
We just had that conversation on the way here.
Oh, no.
Tim and I were talking about, like, you know, obviously my background, like, you do anything for your family, and my mother, like, you know, anything comes to my mother, that's like my wing woman.
You know what I mean? That's what I always say. She's a saint. She's the matriarch of our family, and he called the cops on me, which, you know, in our neighborhood, you don't do.
Right.
You don't call the cops. I wasn't gonna do something. Come on, I'm a 16-year-old kid. Like, but I get it. You know, you're a bully. My father was a bully. He was my bully as a kid, and I'll never forget. You know, he called the cops. I had to go live with my grandmother on Half Street for a while in East Boston, and it was weird. And Then I got back over there, it took about 3 months, and I moved back in, and my father was still abusive, but now it was like, you got to keep your head down and take the beating if you're going to stay here kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because my mother, I love her to death, but she was a woman of abuse. You know what I mean?
Right.
At the time, I resented her because I didn't realize, hey, why aren't you helping me? Why aren't you helping my brother? Why aren't you sticking up for ourselves? Why are you taking this? You always told me not to take anything from anyone. And
it's fair.
It's fair, but but at the same time, I never looked at it through her eyes. You know what I mean? It's the other side of the glass kind of thing, perception over perspective. And I never really understood or recognized what was going on until I got older. Until I got. But it goes back to let me go back to that. I'm sorry to jump. And I was about 17, and my dad came home, and at this point, I was done, dude. I didn't care anymore. I was smoking weed. I was selling weed. I was drinking. I was selling other stuff. Things changed, obviously. Now that I'm older and I've worked through therapy, I've realized why things changed at that time for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like growing up in East Boston, you have to have a certain kind of like tough guy persona, facade about you. Like you got to like stand your ground.
You still do. That's like the
But you
East
do.
Boston
You know what I mean?
way,
I'm like the
right?
nicest guy, but in my head, that's what I thought I had to be. So I became
Yeah.
a nasty person, like a bad person. I didn't think I was really helping anybody. I was always taken. And my dad came home, and I'll never forget. I remember waking up to him crying. I'm coughing blood up. He choked me out so hard he thought he killed me.
Wow.
I was 17 years old, and just another day in the Gaeta household. That's how I looked at it. And that's not good. You know what I mean?
Do you have a relationship with him now?
He's actually no longer with us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Don't be sorry to hear that. It's okay. You know what I mean? And over time, I just stopped. I started regressing. And when I mean regressing, I started going back to primal instinct, survival, how to get by, how to pay bills. And my family's always had, never excess, but we've always been able to get by. You know what I mean? We've always had stuff like pay bills and that kind of stuff. And then I watched our house get repossessed. Not repossessed. What's it called? Foreclosed. I watched all this happen, and I'm like, wow, I'm watching my poor mother, like I said, I love this woman. I'm watching everything she's worked so hard for. She put herself back through school. She became a teacher. She's like watching this whole world feel around her, and I can't do anything because I'm some 18-year-old kid that's selling pot, selling dime bags, you know what I mean? And so I started to regress more, and I started hanging out with people that I wouldn't normally hang out with that I grew up with, and, cocaine came into my life. And cocaine played a big, strong role in my my recovery because it was my downfall, but it took me a long time to realize alcohol was a part of it too. You know what they say, ABCs, alcohol becomes cocaine. It was the story of my life. And with that said, I started, selling stuff heavily. Started hanging out at bars in East Boston. I wasn't even 21 yet. I was working downtown at Boylston Street at the Foggy Goggle. It's Whiskey's now. I was a bouncer at 17, 18, working the front door to bar. So, I'm over here thinking I'm living the life, having, bartenders drop me off at high school, senior year, that kind of life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, this is great. Not realizing the turmoil, I started getting addicted to cocaine because you don't realize it's addicting at first. Because you got to get up for school. And then guess what? After school, school's over at 1 o'clock. You're going to work at 10 o'clock that night till 2 in the morning. You're not leaving till 4 in the morning.
Right.
And I'm a senior in high school working on Lansdowne, on Boylston Street. And it got to me, and eventually I left that job and I started pursuing a career in cooking. I don't know if you remember Sunny Noto's in East Boston.
I do remember Sunny
So I
Noto's.
started off at DeCooper's. I worked there in high school a little bit, and then I
Okay.
started at Sunny Noto's, and they actually taught me how to cook, fine Italian
They're in
food.
Wakefield now, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
They are. They're still doing great. I love them. Shout out to Richie and all of them over there. But so I started cooking, and I got really passionate about it. Went to culinary school, did my thing. All this time, again, just abusing drugs. No one knew. I'm sure you've gotten already, I'm a very fast-paced, let's on the ball kind of person.
Yeah.
So nobody really knew. And I was always successful with my drugs. I was highly functioning is probably the best way to put it. Where I constantly succeeded in life while I was still abusing my body. So I never looked at the negative. I was like, oh, this is a great add-on.
And people probably couldn't tell the difference.
Because this is just me.
Right.
Everyone's like, oh, is this after you're sober? I was like, dude, I was fasted before I was sober, believe it or not. This is me calm. So that all happened, and I started really, really abusing cocaine a lot, and it started just from going on the weekends to now in the morning before I went to work, before I went to school, before I did anything. And
you get dependent on it.
like I said, I was hanging out in those bars in East Boston, and I started doing a couple favors for a lot of people I probably shouldn't have been hanging around. And a lot of trust was built to me because they realized who I was. This kid doesn't care. He just doesn't care. Because that's how I was. I was burning every bridge around me. I was lighting everything on fire. I'll do whatever you ask me to do. You're going to pay me? Let's do it. So I ran a private club in East Boston over on Chelsea Street for 3 years. It was Chelsea and Saratoga Street. The two people that actually asked me to run the club are no longer with us, so I can speak about this a little openly. We used to joke all the time. Downstairs was a lawyer, upstairs was a constable, that they were going to serve us, they were going to free us. We were just waiting to get pinched. You know what I mean? The place, it had the little casino in the back, and it was after hours only. I'd go in there. I was working 3 jobs at the time. I was working at a restaurant, working part-time as a delivery guy. Then I would go there, and I would run this club from 2 in the morning until almost 8 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's where my addiction triple full. It got bad because
You don't sleep. The cocaine keeps you awake.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you don't realize, and then you start getting those shadow people and those things. It's real. I usually think people are crazy telling me these stories. You start hearing whispers and seeing things, and it really started happening. And I don't know what it was, but I was like, dude, I got to slow down. And the club eventually got shut down by got raided and all that stuff. I wasn't there, thank God, that day, but and the machines weren't on, so nothing really came of it. You know what I mean? They came at the wrong time. And I said, hey, we got to close down. And it was probably saving my life because I stopped using at that point for a couple months. Like, you know what I mean? Because I was like, look, I got to slow down. I have all this money I'm making. Like, I can't even enjoy it because I'm constantly working.
Right.
I'm constantly putting it up my nose. And I started chilling and I was relaxing. And what was I doing at that point? I took the job at Strager at Nick Verano's Deli for Nikki.
Nice.
And it was good. You know, I was working over there for him. I was delivering stuff, driving the Strager van all through the North End. It was fun. You know what I mean?
It's a good family to work for.
Great family, great people to work for. You know, my family has a really close relationship with them. And it was just awesome, like working there. I was enjoying the life. And then my buddy opened a restaurant in East Boston called Dough. So I went over there and worked for him. And I was like, you know what, this is a good career move. It wasn't a good career move for me. Somebody who had a lot of mental instability at that time, because I never worked through all that past transgressions that I was just telling you about my father and this abuse. And so I just constantly just kept fueling my life with these like demons and these drugs and all this stuff around me. And that said, I started getting into like this hippie band called Fish. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. It's kind of like the Grateful Dead if you're familiar with them. They're like, it's like this jam band scene all across the country where like they sold out Madison Square Garden 14 nights in 7 minutes.
Wow.
They're huge. They have a huge following. And a kid from East Boston, I get on this lot and everyone's doing drugs and everyone wants to buy drugs. And I was like, this is easy picking for me. I was like, this is where I'm going to spend the next 5 years of my life. I'm going to just roll across the country. And I did for 2 years. I spent 2 years going state to state. I went to 38 states. And I did a lot of stupid stuff in 38 states, stuff probably we can't talk about. Sold a lot of things. And I came home.
We'll leave that to the imagination.
Yeah, you know what? People can figure it out. People are smart enough to realize what the show's about. You know what I mean? So I came back home and I was like, what am I going to do now? And then, like I was telling you earlier before we started this all up, I took some ecstasy. I took a hit of LSD. And I was drinking. Tripping sack. And it was, you know, I can talk about it comfortably now. My war stories, like, you know, I'm 19 months, almost 20 months sober.
Good for you.
And before, you know, war stories weren't my thing. Like, I used to, like, cringe hearing people. Now I laugh about it because I was like, oh, stupid.
My father loves his war stories.
I love them now. I love them. Like,
thrives on them.
I come home from AA and I always tell people, I'm like, this is a great meeting. Like, I had a good story. This guy related to me. And so I started doing a lot of psychedelics now. Like a lot of psychedelics, and things got like, I started opening my mind in a way I should have opened it when I was younger. Not because of the drugs, but an understanding that there's a whole world out here than just East Boston. Because being a city kid, you know, this is what's in my head. This is all I have. This is what I'm going to get the rest of my life. So, you know, you start to work through that stuff, and like I was going across the country doing all this. I come home, like I said, I took the ecstasy, I took the acid, I went to this show. It was Joe Russo's Almost Dead, which is a Grateful Dead cover band. It's all circles back. And one of my old chefs I worked under was there, and he was like, hey, you should come work here. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So I started working there. I cooked for celebrities. You name them. I probably cooked for Billie Eilish, Lizzo, Lady Gaga. I've cooked for all these celebrities. I've done it. Yeah, it's a great experience. You start to realize, you know, they're just working like you are, so like it kind of desensitizes you to the whole celebrity like ensemble. Like this is just some person coming to do their job like I am. You refer to them as talent. I'm going to refer to them as the cook. It's just it all coincides. And I actually met Jack Black doing that. Pretty cool. I was actually ripping a line of coke, and he opened up my little curtain in my kitchen. He's like, how do I get to the main stage? And I'm like, you're in the wrong place, man. Let me get you over there. Thank God he didn't see me doing that. I could have lost my job. And this went on for years. Like I used to call myself the Raging Bull. I got all my friends from East Boston jobs in the kitchen at the House of Blues, so it was my kitchen. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I did what I wanted.
You were comfortable.
My own hours. I came and went as I pleased. And it got bad. Now this is about 2018, 2019. It got to the point where I was doing almost an 8 ball a day. Coke. That's a lot of cocaine. It's a lot of cocaine. And you know, COVID started, you know, this is 2020, sorry. Now, it's 2019, 2020, I started getting back on that high horse. I'm working late nights. I started to realize later on in life, you know, these after hours jobs aren't for me. You know what I mean? It kind of brings out the worst in myself. And I was drugging hard, and COVID happened. March 15, 2020. We got the call, the Dropkick Murphys, I'm sure you're familiar with them, were coming in. We had a 4-day run with them coming in. So we have a VIP lounge for the Cladger Foundation, which is their foundation to raise money for awareness. I cannot remember what they raise awareness for, and I apologize. But Ken Casey's sober. He's the lead member of the Dropkick Murphys, the lead singer. And I remember them coming in, I'm like introducing myself, making an ass of myself to this guy. Like this is right before COVID, and they always do like the pre-production walkthroughs, and they said, and like he could tell I was a mess, and he was giving me that look. And then an hour later, my GM calls me, and she's like, shut it down. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, they just did a state of emergency across the country. Like people can't be going out. We're closing the music hall. Now, whereas a lot of restaurants stayed open, we had to close because we were a music hall that served food, and we had a restaurant too. And there's nothing like stopping a bus at 120 miles per hour at a dead stop. And that was me. Because now I got to stay home. And I'm an addict. And now
it's a very dark and scary time.
Very dark and scary time. And then the government wanted to give us all unemployment. And they wanted to give us an extra $600 a week. And these stimuluses. So what did I do? I started selling things again. Because I was like, you know what? And back to Woody's in East Boston. There wasn't they knew my name. I called. Hey, Chris, what's up? What do you need? They knew. But the one a day call turned into 2 a day call, turned into 3 a day call, turned into me staying up all night till 8 in the morning when I knew they'd open up, and I'd walk there to get booze. And it wasn't good, you know what I mean? Like, it was just this vicious cycle. And I got really skinny, like unhealthy skinny at the time. And I just went on about doing that till about 2021. Like, it was a very, very rough, dark time in my life. And I thought I was pulling myself out of it. My brother called me up. My brother's a great, great guy. I don't really want to go to torture his business, respectfully. He runs a nonprofit, I should say, a very big nonprofit in East Boston. And
Nice.
He got me a job. He's like, hey, you're going to go be a maintenance guy for this property management company. You're really smart, but you're stupid. So we're going to start you here, and we're going to see what you can do. So eventually, I took the job. I hesitated at first because I was doing construction with my stepfather. My stepfather's this great guy. My stepfather's doing construction. He's like, nah, dude, you got to go do this. He's like, this is almost 6 figures a year. Are you stupid? Like, go make real money. And I didn't care because money was always easy to me, as weird as that sounds. Like, it's not hard to find. If I need to find it, I can make $1 if I have to. So I never really worried about that. And I took the job. And it really slowed me down a little bit of using, because I really started to find something I liked, because my boss at the time knew, he's like, you're way more capable than what you're putting on.
Yeah.
Because I never want to show people who I am. I never show somebody a full hand of cards, you know what I mean? So I started off as a maintenance guy, late 2021, and mid-2022 I got promoted to maintenance manager. I got promoted to office manager. Eventually I was the property manager.
Okay.
And this is within 4 years, all in active addiction though. Again, this all coincides with the more drugs I think, the better I'm going to be. And so I'm like, dude, this is great. I'm making 6 figures. I'm comfortable. I don't have a want or care in the world. I didn't realize I kept doing more drugs and more drugs. Now I'm back again to this 8 ball a day habit. And I was telling the producer beforehand about this. January 2024 to June 2024, I spent $30,000 on cocaine.
Wow.
Just cocaine. And that was just on Cash App and Venmo receipts. That's not including what I spent in cash with my dealers face-to-face. Do you know what I mean? I spent almost $9,000 in booze. Come July, mid-July, now I'm miserable. I'm not going to lie. From January on, I was wanting to die. I was suicidal in my head. I was mentally unstable. And I was just, every night, God, please let this stop. God, please, I don't want to do this anymore. I hated myself. I stopped looking in the mirror. I stopped caring about how I looked. I'm a very self-centered person, I'll be honest, when it comes to how I look. I put a lot of thought into how I look every day, how people perceive me as. And again, that came a lot with addiction too. And my mom's like, what's going on? And you know what? Something in my head just broke, screamed, said, hey, say something. You got to tell this woman now. If you don't tell this woman, you're going to do this and you're going to die. You're either going to end up in jail or you're going to die. Because the amount of coke I was picking up, you'd think I was selling it. And I wasn't at that time. You know what I mean? Just using it. No, it was like an 8 ball in the morning, sometimes an 8 ball at night.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I told her, and luckily for me, I had incredible insurance at the time. I went to a luxury detox facility called Hillside in Chestnut Hill. Nice. It was almost $100,000 for my detox. Wow. Covered by them, and it was made for people of business. So I was allowed to bring my laptop in, my cell phone in. I was allowed to get Uber Eats delivered every day and night. It's a little unheard of, you know what I mean, when you go to detox.
Sounds like a hotel experience.
It was a hotel experience. You had your own private room. They had every app on TV. Big shout out to Hillside, by the way. These guys were awesome. They literally helped save my life. And the whole time I was there, I never went downstairs to a commitment, a meeting. I refused to, because again, when you
that
first
was allowed.
You didn't have to go. Wow. When you're paying that kind of money, they're gonna let you do whatever you want. I screamed at the guys one night because they were being loud. I was like, listen, I'm 37 years old, 36 at the time. I said, let's all be adults here and go to bed accordingly. We're all trying to detox, old man status. You know? Yeah. I turned into Unc real quick, and I didn't mind. Okay. And I moved into this thing with these people, and I refused to go to these meetings. They're like, no, you got to go downstairs. You got to hear. And I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I was still pig-headed. I was still not ready to fully accept my sobriety. And I got out, and I had to go to, what is this thing called again? Is it PCP? Is what it called?
PHP.
PHP. And I had to go to partial hospitalization when that was at Clear Haven. Huge shout out to those guys. Clear Haven and Waltham saved my life. Yeah. I credit a lot of my recovery to these people.
It's a great program.
It's a great program. Parker over there, Alex over there, Maya, they're awesome, awesome people. I still, anytime they call me to come in and speak, I jump. I don't care when it is, how it is. That place saved my life, so I'm going to always give back. And I remember when I first got with my therapist, and he's like, dude, you got to stop. He's like, I can tell the kind of person you are. You're very pig-headed. You're way of the fucking highway. I didn't care. You know, he's like, it's not about your recovery as much as it's about everyone else around you's recovery too. So you've got to stop doing what you're used to and start getting, comfortable being uncomfortable. We all say that. We all hear that in recovery so much. And with that said, when I started recovering, I was like, you know what, everything I ever said no to, I'm going to start saying yes to.
Right.
So they're like, hey, you want to do yoga? Yep. So I still do yoga to this day now, 20 months later. Every morning I dedicate a half hour to yoga.
Good.
I started boxing. They were like, you want to sign up for boxing? Sure. Started going to boxing classes. Wasn't really my thing. It was a fun couple of months. Kind of got rid of that. I got more into like running. And I had to get radical acceptance. And I want to touch on this really quickly. Radical acceptance is a huge part of recovery for me. And people don't really understand what that really means. Like when you radically accept something, that means you don't question it, you don't doubt it, you just do it. And a lot of people don't have that at first when they recover. And I didn't have that. As I said, I was wanting to do it my way.
Right.
And then I learned it, and I was like, you know what? I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school until I went to Eastie High, and I was like, you know what? I'm religious. I can get back in touch with God. Let's do this. You know what I mean? Let's get right with my father in that kind of sense. You know what I mean? And not my real father, my God. And so I started doing everything I didn't want to do, and I didn't like relapse prevention classes. It was like my biggest qualm with them, because I was like, you're glorifying people's relapses. But at first, because again, I didn't know about recovery and all this stuff, I didn't realize what they're doing is they're helping desensitize speaking up about it. Mm-hmm. And people don't realize that. Like, you have to encourage relapse when it happens, because if you don't, you're going to shelter these people again. You're going to push them back, make them revert to what they were originally. And that's not what you want to do to somebody. And, so I started just playing ball. And the more I played ball, the easier things got. Or at least I thought they got easier. But to say, like, playing life on hard for so long, normal is just a little easier now. Life's not easier. It's just I'm used to living a normal lifestyle. So I started going to AA, and I hated AA. Like, I fought against.
So were you NA or AA?
AA. And I hated it. I did go to a couple of NA meetings. It's a great group of people and everything like that. But AA is more my thing, because I didn't realize until I started breaking down my therapist, alcohol was everything.
You needed to stop.
No, I didn't care about the coke. I didn't care about the drugs. I didn't care about any of that if I didn't drink. If I didn't drink, I didn't give a shit. So I started listening to my therapist, this dude Parker. He was awesome. Like, he helped me break down the stuff with my dad. He helped me realize I was like, it sucks to say it. I say it like this. I was the piñata. I had nothing to do with his own mental instabilities.
Right.
So he's the one that's like, come on, man, you got to go to these meetings. And my buddy Ryan O'Brien, huge shout out Ryan O'Brien. He's one of my best friends from the fish scene, actually, back to that scene. He's huge in recovery and was like, dude, you're going to come with me to these meetings. We're going to find one for you. Like, so we started shopping. And when I mean shopping, I was going to like Bunch of Drunks in Charlestown, going to St. John's and Winthrop. I'm going all the way up
You're going everywhere.
North Reading, young people's meetings. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I'm trying everything and anything. And when I started to realize I liked men's meetings. I preferred to go to men's meetings. You get to be more honest. You get to be more open at the time. Because in early recovery, you can't just sit across from somebody of the opposite sex like now and just discuss about everything going on. Right. I didn't realize, we'll touch on that too, the vulnerability of it all, because I'm a huge proponent of stay away from the opposite sex when you first get sober. Mm-hmm. It's a huge thing. Do not 13-step. People have to, like, you know what I'm saying? And I started going to these men's meetings, and I met my sponsor there. And I'll never forget my sponsor, this old Italian guy from Chicago, talking just like me, though. He's like, fuck this, fuck that. I went to Vegas. I'm like, I went to Vegas and got lost. I went to Miami and got lost, too. I'm like, I get this.
You could relate to him.
Yeah, no, he's like, I went to Vegas every month. During my addiction, I went to Vegas 7 times in 3 years. Like, that's where I went. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm out here. I'm going to Vegas. I had friends on the strip. I would just dip out. And, I got to stop banging your table. Sorry. I know.
It's a habit. We like to swing our hands.
Yeah. No, so I started getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and I hit my 90-day mark. And my sponsor's like, dude, you got to come do these commitments now. He's like, this isn't, because like to me, and I'm sure to a lot of people, and I can't speak for everybody, when you first get sober, you're like, oh, the world's healed. Everything needs to go back to normal.
You're on a pink cloud.
Yeah, no, I'm still in the pink cloud. I refuse to come down. I will never come down from this cloud. Like, you have to talk about sobriety every day like it's your first day. You have to embrace sobriety like it's your first day every day. That's the only way you're going to remain sober. And I didn't like the whole AA mantra at first, surrender yourself to a higher power, admit you're powerless. I'm like, I'm not powerless. And I didn't realize that I am powerless, but I'm not powerless with God by my side. He gives me the power to keep me away from alcohol and that kind of stuff. So he's like, you got to come do these commitments. And I'll never forget the first one I went to. It's like Clarity and Saugus. I believe they closed down for some odd, sketchy things, whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
Not my business, nor do I care. And I just remember just seeing a bunch of young kids there, and I was like, yeah, I gotta talk to these kids. Like, I grew up in the city, and like
it was a really nice facility.
It was a beautiful facility. They're apparently reopening under a different marker.
Okay.
This is the rumor mill going around. And so I was like, I got to tell people my story. I grew up in poverty. I broke the poverty. I went back to poverty. And I broke the cycle again myself. Like, these people need to understand. You don't need to live this way. So I started doing my step work. And I'll never forget, step 5 is telling another man a story, or a woman, depending on. And step 6 is like accepting that story. And I remember sitting there with the priest, and the priest said, you cut a lot of trees down in your life. And you got to plant a lot of seeds. So anytime I do a commitment or even something like this, I'm like, this is me going to plant my seeds. This is me fixing what I've wronged. This is me trying to give back even a little bit.
Yeah.
So I started doing these. I really got into them a lot. I really got into the commitments. I got into all the whole AA heavily. Until about, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, when I said I was talking about anonymity in AA and how, like, I lost it because somebody I was with was talking about my personal business. Before we started this, I was telling you that. And I got a really bad taste in my mouth at first, so I became hesitant in AA, and I stopped going right away. Which, at first, you think everything's okay because you're pink cloud there. You're fine, I can handle this myself. Then I started realizing I was getting angry again, short-tempered again. Not looking to use, though, but old traits I had about myself I didn't like that I worked so hard to get rid of. And over time, I was okay, maybe I need to start finding a new home, a new group. So I started going, went up to St. John's. There's a bunch around my neighborhood, and I check them out. I like them. But like, I kind of become, and I'll be honest about it, half in, half out with AA, just because it takes a lot out of you in recovery. In early recovery, you need that. But later, in the latter end of, like, recovery's forever. But I say, like, latter end of early recovery, like when your post-acute withdrawal symptoms go away, all these things start to dissipate. You start to realize you need to start focusing on you. Because for so long, the first year of my sobriety, I gave everybody everything. And my sponsor's like, no, dude, you have to focus on you.
On you.
You are the pedestal. Like, everyone needs to come to you. And during that time, like I said, I was going to meetings, and people started coming out of the work. I know you've seen my journey online. I'm pretty sure that you've seen, like, one of my pictures. Like, I lost a lot of weight. I got really fat when I got sober. That happens.
That does happen.
I walked out of detox rehab 260. I got up to 294.
Wow.
I'm down to 208 pounds now.
Good for you.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That was 19 months of, like, hard work, though. I got a personal trainer, Kid Save My Life, shout out Diddy Fit. He friggin' helped me. It was worth it. It was worth everything. Like, even though getting screamed at's not fun at 6 in the morning, it will save your life when you need it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I went from this kid that would run, I think we timed it was an 18-minute mile. I'm doing 3 miles in 35 minutes now.
Good for you.
Do you know what I mean? And it's just like the working out and the keeping up with it, and like that's where my recovery I realized was like all about. I started using healthy addictions because I have an addictive personality. After you work through the what was me, I call it, in recovery, and a lot of people suffer from this, where like I'm the victim, I'm the problem, like everyone else is the problem. It wasn't me with the torch burning everything down, borrowing money when I'm making all this money, like, you know what I mean? So, like, my biggest thing is I was like, I got to stop being the victim and just start, like, just be, like, use this tough guy mentality you got from the city in other parts of life.
Right.
Be aggressive with your work. Be aggressive with what you want, but don't be too aggressive where you're hurting and taking from other people. And that's where a lot of people, like, forget. Because, I try to, like, help people out in AA and all that, and, like, you start to realize, woe is me. Everyone, and it's not everyone, but everyone at one point in their addiction, it just feels like they're not the problem. And the biggest part of recovery, I feel like your first step in true recovery is you have to admit you were the problem. You have to acknowledge you're the problem. You have to admit that you burnt this house down, this house of lies, this house of cards. Like, I spun beautiful golden webs of lies. Like, I was making 6 figures, borrowing money, hawking chains. Like, who does that? Like, I should be comfortable. Like, you know what I mean? I should be living in my house nice and comfortable, making my payments, not struggling to make my mortgage. Everything should have just been the way it was. But I'm over here struggling. And like this cross, like, that's why I wear this out so much. This is all my grandmother's rings. She brought from Italy with her. And I had to melt it down when she passed away. I hawked that when I was in addiction, you know what I mean? And the guy, I remember, he's like, it's worth about a couple $1,000. I was like, no, just give me $300. That's all I need, because I knew that's all I could pay back. And the day before I went to detox, it was about to hit that 90-day mark where it was gone forever. And I called a buddy of mine that owns a restaurant in Chelsea. He called his buddy, the place I pawned it, and was like, you're not doing that. That's this kid's grandmother's. Like, keep it back. And I told my mother about it, and I said, I'll give you the money for it. And she goes, no. She goes, what do you have? She goes, you burnt your credit, you burnt everything, you lost your calories. What do you have right now? And I was like, like I said, money comes easy to me. I was like, give me 2 hours. I'll have whatever you need. I'll go find it. Somebody will give me a brown bag. I'll be right back. And she kept my chain. I'll never forget this. For 6 months in my recovery, my mother, I'm 38 years old. I was 36 at the time when I started. My mother kept my chain, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve to wear that around your neck. Like, how dare you? And when I hit 180 days, she cried. And my mother, again, this will go back to, she's my God, in that sense. Like, they say your higher power, my higher power, even though she's still with us, is my mother. Because I used God originally as grow or die. Like GOD, grow or die was my acronym at first, because you have to surrender yourself to a higher power. But my mother's always been there for me. My mother's never judged me. My mother's never put me down. No matter how many, and I've done some God-awful things in my life. No one's a saint, you know what I mean? But
none of us are.
Especially in addiction. You do some really, like, I never robbed somebody, though. Like, I'm really surprised by that, given all the stupid shit I did. I never, like, robbed anybody at gunpoint. I never stole something like that. I would borrow and pay back, but I would borrow under false pretenses.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, bro, my check's in the mail. Check's always in the mail. You know what I mean? And, like, you start, like...
You had the story lined up before you got there.
Story and 4 other ways out of it. You know what I mean? They don't know. They know it's coming, but they don't want to admit it's coming. And, like, where I'm at now, though, it's amazing. Like, I look at life so differently. Like, I get up every day and I have a set schedule. I left my company I was with for 5 years, and I actually started my own property management company recently.
Good for you.
And it's about 22 properties, and it's holding down heavy. And, like, I want to expand. I want to get bigger. My goal is to have 100 properties by, like, 2030. Like, I want to be, like, this is my life. I like doing this kind of stuff. I found my niche, as they would say, you know what I mean? And again, it's easy money, this kind of stuff. Like, if people look at the bigger picture, property management, all that kind of stuff, it's real easy if you know numbers, and I love numbers, given my past. Numbers come easy to me. So, like, nowadays, it's just like, you know, it's work, gym, sleep, and that's it. And, like, that's the only mentality I have to keep. And we were talking about earlier about the vulnerabilities of people when they first get sober. People have to be careful. I've seen some of my good friends fall in that hole. This girl's going to save me. She's 3 months sober than me.
Yeah,
or this
they
guy's
both
going
go
to
down.
save me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even people actually sometimes come out and take advantage of your new sobriety that aren't even in the sober community because they see you doing so good for yourself.
Yep.
And they don't realize that, like, you coming in to try to hang out with me is actually playing with fire because I'm still a lit flame. And, like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, not to sound too personal, but, you know, let's get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? I did the whole no sex thing at first when I first got sober. I did all that.
Yeah.
And, like, I started seeing how people were reacting to me, and I was like, this isn't healthy. Like, why did you come around? You know I'm fragile right now. Like, I'm very open about my recovery story. If anyone knows me, you go on my Facebook. I post daily. I always post updates about myself. So, like, people know that, like, you know, you're weak at that point. You're not as mentally strong.
Yeah.
Like I said, we're from East. I'm from East. I don't know. You're from East Boston?
Winthrop, but
Close
family's
enough.
from East
Yeah,
Boston.
close enough. So you got that mentality then.
Yeah.
That dog-eat-dog
My
mentality.
father was
you know?
born and raised.
So he put that in your head, that
organized,
dog-eat-dog
yeah.
mentality.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I look at it and I was like, dude, I was a weak mental person at that time. And like, I had these people coming out like, oh, how are you working out? What's your workout routine? What are you doing? And I'm like, why don't you ask a girl? Like, why are you asking me? Like, you should be like, don't message me like that. I'm not one of those people. I'm very private about my personal life. But like, I didn't like that about people, you know, during recovery. Like, they come out of the woodwork and they want to be your friend. And I'm like, you just want to
Because
see.
they see you doing good. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, where were you when I was freaking out, down and out, fucking literally sniffing 8 balls daily? Like, you know,
On
you're
to
over
the
there.
next person who was doing good.
You know what you were doing? You were over there being like, oh, he's never going to succeed. And then you see me doing good. You know what I mean? So, like, you start to realize people's, like, true intention, male or female. And because I had a lot of guy friends in my life. Lost a lot of friends. Some close friends of mine for 20 years. Because, you know, East Boston, even with the people you grew up with, you're friends with forever. And I lost a lot of friends. And I also realized a lot of fake people during that time. And, like, I don't ever want to bash anybody because what I did was terrible to people during my active addiction. I hurt a lot of people. I took a lot from people.
But that's the beautiful thing about recovery is you have to be forgiven. You know what I mean? You're in
Exactly.
recovery and you forgive and you move past it. And I think a lot of people don't understand that people change.
People change, but I also have to understand what's like some of my close friends that won't speak to me anymore. I understand why they won't, because all they wanted for years and years was for me to be sober. And it took for them to stop talking to me to get sober, so they can hold that. I hope one day they forgive me. And you know, every what do you call it, month I hit sober, I message these people in a little group chat. I'm like, hey, just letting you guys know I miss you, fucks. Like, let's hang out sometime. But I have a great core group of friends. Like, I have 4 friends I hang out with, and I want nobody else in my life. You know what I mean? I don't want no one in my like. I always tell people, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm not accepting applications. Try again. Thank you very much. I'll pass. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want any friends in my life that weren't already here when I started this. Like, you're not gonna, like, Michael Sorrentino, The Situation, Jersey Shore. I remember when I first got sober, I read his book, Reality Check. This
He's
book,
awesome.
You read it?
I've seen different little snips of
Dude,
it online.
read that book. The first chapter, you said you're from Italian background.
Yes,
I'm
I
Sicilian,
am.
so I don't know if you guys do
I'm
the 7
half
fishes.
Sicilian. I'm actually allergic to fish.
But your family doesn't.
They don't do them anymore.
They don't respect
Because I'll
it.
drop dead.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I don't eat fish.
EpiPen's ready, like I will die.
I was that kid that ate Chinese food during the 7 fish. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I was just
yeah.
like, ick. You know what I
During
mean?
Christmas? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, what are we getting? I was like, we ordered a little Asian, great chef. What are we doing here? And I'll never forget, you know, there's a part in his story in the 2nd or 3rd chapter, and he's talking about how, like, he's upstairs cutting lines while his mother's preparing the fish. And I'm like, dude, this is my book. I'm like, I literally lived this life, like Christmas Eve. Like, Chris is never hungry on Christmas Eve. We don't know why. They knew why.
Yeah.
And, you know, the huge part of that book, anybody read that book, please. If you ever have a chance, you start recovery. Like, recovery books are great when you first get out there. Even AA books, like As Bill Sees It, like all these kind of things. Read these books. They really open up your eyes because we all think, like I said, that woe was me factor. Our stories are very similar.
Puts a different perspective on
Yeah,
life.
you realize, like, you're just human. And you know what I mean? For so long growing up in that city mentality, you're just go, go, go. Everything has to be one way. You need to have predetermined plans and 6 ways out of that. And with recovery, the best part is everything's not predetermined and everything just happens on a whim. Like when I wake, like today I'm sober, tomorrow I don't know, but I know my intentions are to be to wake up one day at a time. You know what I mean? And like it's been a great roller coaster of things. And like back to what I was saying, I do these. I speak sometimes. It was what back in the day was like Clarity. Now I do Leahy Danvers.
Nice.
So I either speak upstairs or downstairs depending on where my sponsor would put me at the time. And I also do the Salvation Army once every couple of months now.
Love that.
Yeah, I know you have. Like I said, it's all about planting these.
My
seeds.
dad went through Salvation Army.
Great. It's a
in
great
Saugus,
program,
yeah.
the men's program over there.
He did Meridian House. He walked out.
I don't blame him. You know what I
Walked
mean?
to
I
the
don't
court
wanna
and was
judge-
like, "Put me somewhere else."
I've had friends, and that's why. Like I've had friends that succeed in the Meridian House, and I've heard horror stories in the Meridian
Same.
House.
But that's everywhere you go.
Exactly.
It's what the person makes it.
It's the what was me person, you know what I mean? And maybe your dad wasn't ready yet then, you know what I mean? Maybe he was like, it's not, and that's what it was, like, you know what I mean? There was many times where, like, I went to a couple of AA meetings back when I was younger. I was like, let's check this out. And I was like, fuck this. Like, what do you mean I can't have fun? Like, I always, like, you know, correlated drugs and alcohol with fun. I didn't realize there was this whole world.
But that's what we also grew up in, too, like the party era. Like, let's take Jersey Shore, for example. What's everyone doing?
Yeah, think of every hip hop song you hear, every song they promote you. Right. Yeah, but you know, you have to realize, now I realize I hang out, like, it took me a long time to go out with people that were drinking and partying. And now I go out, I'm the life of the party still.
Right.
I don't even need to touch a drink. I don't need to even fucking smoke a joint. Like, you know what I mean? Because when I first got sober, I still smoked weed for a long time. It took me a while. It took me a year of sobriety to finally put down the pot. You know what I mean? Like, when you finally get, that was like my final boss. I still smoke cigarettes, and that's my vice, and that's my own doing. But like, my final boss was weed, because weed got me through everything. Weed was there when my dad beat me. Weed was there when we lost my house. Weed was there when I got sober from cocaine and alcohol. Right. So I was like, oh, weed's fine. And then I started to realize, and one of my friends Joe actually said it the best way. He goes, why are we paying to get stupid? I'm like, you're right, dude. I was like, there's so much going on in this world. What are we doing? So I've actively, like, put myself nowadays into any kind of recovery talk I can. Like, some of my friends get sick of it, and I'm like, dude, too bad. I'm like, this is me now. Like, if you don't like it, then maybe, you know, don't hang out with me as much, because this is what I need every day. Because I'm a loose cannon. Like, when I was in active addiction, all it takes is one for me. You know, one drink's too many, they say, and that's me. I don't know what's going to happen. People are like, oh, you don't think you could just have one? Yeah, I could, but I don't know what's going to happen after that one, so I'm never going to chance it.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Like I said, back to running this property management company. I want to be on top of it. I still want to be doing all this. For the first time in my life, I'm comfortable where I am, so I hope I'm still doing as good as I am in 5 years, if that sounds weird. I'm sure you don't hear that a lot. You know what I mean? I'm actually comfortable, like, where, like, I have control of my life for the first time in 38 years.
Yeah.
Like, where I know every facet that's going on, and whether I have control of it or not, I can handle the emotion that comes with it after. And that's a big part about recovery, you know, just handling the emotion, because emotion's raw. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. When you get sober, you think the world's fixed. No. You got to fix the world now, dude. You got to get out there and stop paying people back. If you're not giving these people, like, you're not really giving them anything. And, like, you know what I mean? For the longest time, fighting with family and fighting with significant others, like, I treated them so poorly, and I thought it was them. And I always used them as, like, you know, you do this. It was me causing all this, you know what I mean? And the closer I get this, like, you know, the closer I get to where I want to be and where I feel I am now, I look at everything as a helping way. Like, I used to be a taker. Now I'm like, what do you need? Do you need me to do this? Can I do something? Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think what it was I was always a giver. But at such a young age with the abuse, I felt like something was taken from me, so I hated the world. And I worked at that with therapy, you know what I mean? Because I was like, they say get back in touch with God's people in recovery. And, like, I'll never forget, I was like, there's no God, dude. I'm getting my ass kicked every day. My dad's over here stealing my confirmation money out of my Nintendo Switch game. You know what I mean? Or it was the freaking whatever the other one was going on at the time. And I'm like, this isn't life. And back to the steps. When I got really into the steps, my third step is surrender yourself to that. You know what I mean? Admit, like, and I remember I woke up that day and I said, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. 2 hours later, my father dropped dead. Aww. No, it was the most freeing feeling ever. Like,
for you, yes, because of what you went through.
And for him too, though, because, you know, he died of active addiction. You know what I mean? It got the best of him. It's terrible to say, but I have to talk about. I love my father dearly. I forgive him for everything that happened.
Right.
It took me a long time to work through that, but I also have to understand I have to still be the man I am.
He's not suffering anymore.
He's not suffering anymore, and, like, you know, when I went to, because, like, my mom wanted nothing to do with him. They were obviously divorced. My brother dead to him. Like, I was the family. I was the black sheep. I was the one that cared about him. You know what I mean? And no matter what, he was still my dad. But we're Italian, so your father's your father. I hated you, but if you called the phone, I'd pick up in a heartbeat. And I remember going to, you know, taking care of the debt certificate at Ruggerio's. I remember doing all this. I remember going to his bank account. And I didn't know this because, like, again, I was really out of my father's life, where it would just be holidays I would speak to him, my birthday or holidays of his birthday. He was in the hospital for a month leading up to that with another heart. So my dad had a lot of stents put in his heart. He loved opiates and cocaine, so not a good mix. Yeah. Either one of them's not good, but together they're even more lethal. My father checked himself out of the hospital the day before he got his pension check, because he knew his pension check was coming, and then went back, took out all the money. I'm assuming saw the drug dealer, and then his heart exploded. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm like, that's my biggest fear of life, and the biggest thing I always face on is, like, I don't want to be that man.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I didn't realize until I went to therapy, until I talked to another person, that I was that man. I lived that life because that's all I knew. And then when you realize in sobriety, and there's this whole great life out there, good or bad. I tell people all the time, whether you can feel good, whether you can feel bad, you get to feel. Who cares if it's good or bad, dude? Thank God I'm feeling bad. Thank God I'm crying my eyes out. You know what I mean? What else should I be doing if I wasn't? I'd be lining up this table right now and taking a shot. What's
one piece of advice you want to close with to our viewers?
Tell people you love them. You know what I mean? I always say that at the end of my we call it commitments. You know, if no one told you they love you, I love you today. Like people need to be more like more embracing of others, more accepting of others. Straight, gay, black, white, it does not matter. Like love people for them being themselves. It doesn't matter who they are, what they bring to the table. It's just them as a person. Love them as a person. And if you don't love them, move on. You know what I mean? That's it in life. I always tell people, the one advice I can give somebody is just love the person next to you no matter what.
I love that. I do. Because people don't see people for who they are. They see them for sometimes what they have, what they can offer, and you know what? It's about the person. It's not about what they have around them.
Do you know what I mean? And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. It's like appreciate what you have, because I grew up having nothing. I grew up having everything. Had the what do you call it, indoor in-ground pool. Had all that stuff. Lost it all. Worked myself up to get my own house now and everything like that. I've played the game, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I tell people all the time, like if they ever have a problem, and if anyone ever reaches out to you, and they want to reach out to me, put them in contact with me so I can help them. I always want to help somebody. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm taking a hiatus right now, and I had a girl message me and be like, I know you don't have the house anymore, and I know that, like, you know, you're not really working in treatment right now, but, like, I need to talk to somebody. And she had reached out to other people, and I guess other people weren't so receptive to her, and she reached out to me, and I was the one that kept her from using that day. Just because I answered the phone, and she could hear my voice, and she could talk to me, and, like, I helped her. You know what I mean? I gave her resources. I was able to point her in the right direction, and to this day, she is still living. So that's all that matters. You know, I was that voice of reason.
People don't understand that one phone call saves a life. They don't realize what it could bring. You know what I mean? Luckily for me, like you know what I mean. The further I get away from alcohol, the more I don't want to be around it, in the sense of like I don't want to drink ever again. Like a lot of people are always like, oh, do you have like, you know, a celebration thing if you never have a drink again? You know, I tell people when I make a $5 million deal, I'll have a glass of champagne, because that's how far-fetched. You know what? One day if that happens, I'm probably not gonna have the glass of champagne, but I'm gonna have my little Welch's grape juice like I do on New Year's. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna celebrate. Yeah. Right. What else you got for me, Willie?
I think you've covered. You have been by far one of the best guests we've had. I'm just going to say that because you went from point A to point B. You took questions out of my mouth and answered them. Like, you were awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you inviting me on here. I always seen you online, like, you know, talking. I believe it was when you were on the statistical sober homes. You had something on there, you know, with food stamps for helping people. And I reached out and I was like, dude, I saw this on the news. This is who you are. Like, that's awesome. Keep up. And like, and then I started seeing your stories online. And I started seeing how you talked about it. I was like, dude, good for her, man. Like, I don't know if you had an addiction or a past.
I have more mental health. I don't have an addiction.
Yeah.
I have an eating disorder and I have mental health. So, like, I'm in the middle.
I think that's still an addiction, believe it or not.
It is. It is in a way. And my dad obviously had his addiction.
Yeah, so you're familiar. You're in this. You're in it. Yeah, and that's awesome that you do this, dude. And like, so yeah, like, you know, that's. I saw you do all that, and you were like, yeah, come tell your story. I was like, dude, you know what? I'm gonna go fucking tell my story.
Tell your story.
What the fuck else? Like, what else am I gonna do on a Tuesday afternoon? Like, I have a job. Like, hilarious. I have a job, but I was like, I'll come do this. Like, you know what I mean? It's a great feeling.
Take some time off and tell your story.
Exactly. So I thank you for inviting me on. I really, truly do. It was a great story. You know, it was a great time, great place.
You were great, honestly. Like, I love when I have a guest that can just take it and go, because it's a lot easier for me, because I don't want to ask questions that are going to pry. And, like, you were able to hit on a lot of topics.
I'll break down the sentences. Yeah, that's the one thing, again, about recovery. You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Right. If I can't look somebody in the face, like, my father beat the shit out of me every day, how am I going to tell you it's okay, you'll be sober?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, be comfortable being uncomfortable. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, guys.